This story, Parashat Toldot, is really about responsibility and connection and legacy. Isaac and Rebekah, their story is marked by struggle, internal struggle and external struggle. But amidst all these struggles, it's Jacob who becomes the hero. He comes forward to take responsibility for carrying on the family's spiritual mission. His actions are complicated, but they reveal the essence, I believe, of what it means to rise to a challenge, to take ownership of a sacred duty, and to ensure the continuity of tradition. And it's Jacob's behavior that leads me to want to speak today about a rather particular mitzvah that I would say is severely underrated. So from the bima, I speak about Shabbat, and I speak about kashrut, and I speak about the holidays a lot. But I've never talked about something that I really should talk about more often, and it's the power of nichum avelim, the mitzvah of attending a shiva house, and in particular, the mitzvah of leading prayer services for families in mourning. So I want to talk today about the people who do it and about the people who benefit from it. I want to submit to you that leading prayer services at a shiva house is one of the most powerful expressions of loving kindness that there is, ensuring that a grieving family has the support, structure, and sanctity they need during the most difficult times in their lives. Let me give you a bit of context for those more unfamiliar. Under Jewish law, first-degree relatives who experience a loss are commanded to engage in a week-long period of mourning called the Shiva. That means parents, spouses, children, and siblings. During the week of Shiva, mourners stay at the designated Shiva home. They refrain from going to work or school or other outside activities. They do this in honor of the memory of the deceased. It gives them a place to express their grief. But they also do this so that they can find comfort in community and ritual. All visitors who come to a shiva house are performing the mitzvah of nichum avelim, comforting a mourner. You do not have to say anything when you attend. In fact, many sources explain that you should not say anything at all when you attend a shiva house unless you are spoken to first. All you have to do is show up. And during the week, prayer services are conducted at the shiva house and the mourners recite the mourner's Kaddish. Did you ever ask yourself, why are these prayers conducted at the home? Well, mourners are not supposed to leave their home during the whole week of Shiva. Shiva is meant to be a detachment from the world. The focus of the mourner must be inward and spiritual. We don't bring them to synagogue, we bring synagogue to them. Judaism's view of grief is all about handling things slowly and in stages. When you lose a loved one, your world changes completely, and Jewish tradition acknowledges that by limiting your interaction with the world, so it doesn't hit you all at once. At the beginning, your world should just be your home, and then slowly you encounter the wider world again. So looking at the way people practice the Shiva rituals today, some families prefer to rest in the mornings at Shachrit. Families like a quiet dinner hour at Mincha, but almost everyone will host Mariv, the evening service, at home. Mariv is a beautiful service. It's short and sweet, and it contains a very special prayer called the Hashki Venu prayer, in which we bless God, Hapores Sukat Shalom Aleinu, the one who spreads a shelter of peace over us at evening when we go to sleep. There's something particularly special about praying the Mariv service in a Shiva house. Sleep, the Talmud says, is 1/60th of death. So every night, when we recite the evening prayers, when we say the Shema, when we ask for forgiveness, we are cleaning our spiritual slates, cleaning and clearing them in preparation for death. And there's a parallel between the way we thank God, who spreads a shelter of peace over us as we sleep, and the way we ask God to spread a shelter of peace over our loved one who has entered eternity. I love that this is our custom when someone is mourning. We come to them. We comfort them with our presence as best as we can. We pray with them. We give them the witnessing and the community in which they can recite the mourner's Kaddish, which is a prayer that never once mentions death, but which has rhythm and cadences which take us into a different headspace and a different heart space than we otherwise inhabit. It is at the core of what makes a Shiva so meaningful. With a congregation as large and vibrant as ours, there are frequent moments when families turn to us for guidance after a loved one passes. Often, these families are unfamiliar with the rituals of Shiva, and sometimes there is no one in their circle who knows how to lead the Mariv service. And yet, when a member of our community steps forward to take on this responsibility, it transforms the experience of mourning into one of profound connection and profound holiness. Going back to the Parsha for a moment, something that's not obvious but is fascinating. The main event of our Parsha is Esav spurning his birthright, Jacob inheriting the blessing, and Esau losing it. Do you know where this whole story occurs? In the tent, right? When Isaac is not around, Jacob is making a lentil stew, Esau is coming back from the field. According to Rashi, this is a Shiva. Who died? Abraham. The whole story of our Parsha occurs at a Shiva. When Abraham dies, Jacob is preparing a stew for his father so that he will have something to eat when he comes home from the cemetery, and Esau out having fun. In other words, the metric by which the righteous are deemed righteous and the wicked are deemed wicked in our Parsha is the way he or she attends to the needs of the mourner at their time of need. Why does Jacob inherit the patriarchy? Because he assumes responsibility for ensuring that the blessings of his grandfather and his father will continue to shape the future. This moment isn't just about inheritance. It is about what is sacred, preserving it, what is essential, making sure that endures. When a person volunteers to lead a Shiva service, similarly, You are entering into a similar moment of responsibility. You are ensuring that Jewish mourning rituals, which are rooted in centuries of tradition, are carried out with dignity and care. Like Jacob, you may feel unprepared or uncertain, but your willingness to act is what matters most. Rabbinic literature emphasizes the importance of taking initiative in moments of need. The Talmud teaches, Kol ha'osek b'tzorchei tzibur ke'ilu oskin b'Torah. If you are someone who occupies themselves with the needs of the community, it is like you are occupying yourself with Torah. When you lead a Shiva service, it's precisely this kind of communal responsibility. It's an act of Torah in action, a mitzvah that is uplifting to both the mourner and to the leader. From a psychological perspective, rituals play a critical role in helping people process grief. Dr. Alan Wolfelt, a leading grief counselor, explains that mourning rituals provide a sense of order and purpose during times of chaos. He writes, quote, "Rituals help us express our grief in a way that is both personal and collective. They give us a framework to say goodbye and to begin the journey towards healing." End quote. For a grieving family, ask them. The Shiva service is one of the most important rituals. It brings people together in prayer, offering words of comfort and connection. When you lead this service, you are not only facilitating prayer, you are creating a sacred space where healing can begin. And believe me, there is immense power in your physical presence. It's one thing to come to a Shiva house if you knew the deceased or if you knew the family. It's one thing if you go there as the rabbi or as the cantor. But I've seen Shiva leaders walk into a Shiva house as strangers. And yeah, it feels more awkward for you. But trust me, it's often more special to them because it sends a message that you're not alone. Your community is here for you. You become, in that moment, an anchor for that family. You are an embodiment of our community. You are an embodiment of the love of our tradition. Let me share a story that illustrates the impact of this mitzvah. A few years ago, a family contacted me. They just lost their mother. They were overwhelmed. They didn't know how to proceed. They didn't know about the prayers, how to conduct a Shiva. The grief was compounded by a lot of anxiety about how to honor their mother's memory properly. I assured them it's going to be okay. They're not going to go through this alone. So I sent Irv the email. Are there any volunteers who might be available to help lead the Shiva service? Irv keeps a roster of volunteers, and one of our members stepped forward. I want to emphasize that this member was not a professional, was not a regular ritual leader. He was just somebody who had taken the time to learn the service. He entered their home with a warm smile, introduced himself, and quietly guided the family through Mariv. After the service, the family called me to share their gratitude. The daughter told me, when he began to pray, it was like my mother was still with us. He gave us words when we had none. He gave us peace when we felt broken. This is the power of leading a Shiva service. It is not just about reciting words. It's about bringing comfort and dignity and meaning to a family in mourning. So I want to express, after 16 years being here, and shamefully never saying this, I want to express my deepest gratitude to the people in our congregation, some who are here today and some who are not, but please let them know. The people who have already taken on this responsibility, the people on Irv's list. Your willingness to step into a stranger's grief and lead them in prayer is a profound act of kindness. You are the quiet heroes of this community. You ensure that no family is left unsupported during their time of need. But our list is getting a little bit small lately. The clergy, unfortunately, can't go to Shivas in the evenings because we have an evening service here that we have to take care of. I'd like it if this list could expand. It's a mitzvah that belongs to all of us. It's an opportunity for us to live out the values of chesed, loving kindness, tzedek, righteousness, and kehillah, community. Like Jacob in our Parsha, we're called to step forward, even when it feels daunting. If you have ever thought about leading a Shiva service but felt unsure of your abilities, let me assure you, you can do this, male or female, old or young. We will provide you with the tools and the training you need. You do not need to know every melody or every word by heart. What matters most, as I said, is just showing up, being willing to attend, and your commitment to helping others. There's a beautiful teaching in Pirkei Avot that says, Al tifrosh min hatzibur. Don't separate yourself from the community. One of the commentaries adds, and surely don't cause others to be separated from the community either. When you lead a Shiva service, you live out this principle in a profound way. You become the bridge between the mourner and the larger community, ensuring that no one feels isolated in their grief. Dr. Viktor Frankl, in his seminal work, Man's Search for Meaning, writes, life is never made unbearable by circumstances, but only by lack of meaning and purpose. In other words, no matter how devastating a loss may be, it's actually the loss of meaning and purpose that can happen after the loss that threatens to destroy you. I have sadly seen this play out in families many times. And you may think that leading a Shiva service, which takes less than half an hour, is marginal. But hear me clearly when I say that you are actually playing an essential role in helping a family find meaning and purpose in their lives again. You are transforming their loss into an opportunity for connection and healing. So we leave the sanctuary today, hopefully carrying some lessons from our Parsha in mind, and remembering that the story of Jacob is in essence the story of all of us. We are not merely inheritors of a tradition. We must be its guardians, its builders, and its teachers. Jacob stepped forward to ensure the continuity of his family's sacred mission. Uncertain, imperfect, but committed. In the same way, we are called to step forward, to take responsibility for all the threads of connection that bind us to one another and to our shared legacy. Leading a Shiva service, what did the rabbi talk about? Seems so small in the grand tapestry of Jewish life, but it is nothing short of sacred. It is a moment when the abstract values of our tradition, chesed, tzedek, and kehillah, come alive in the most tangible way. You walk into that home with the Siddur in hand. You are carrying more than just a book. You are carrying the weight of generations. You are telling a grieving family you are not alone. Your pain matters, and your community is here to hold you. That is a profound and holy message that echoes through eternity. We live in a world where many are searching for meaning and purpose, for a way to make their lives matter. What I am asking of you today is not just to fill a role or complete a task. I am asking you to step into something greater, to become a vessel of compassion, a bearer of tradition, and a builder of community. If you have ever felt a tug at your heart to serve, if you have ever wondered how you might bring light into someone's darkest hour, here's your opportunity. Say yes, step forward, and together let us weave a tapestry of love, resilience, and faith that will carry us and our children into the future. May we be worthy of this calling. May we honor those who came before us by embracing our responsibility to those who need us, and may the Holy One spread a shelter of peace over all of us as we strive to spread that same peace to those in mourning. Shabbat Shalom.